Nintendo was getting a lot of heat this last week following the announcement of the Nintendo Switch 2 because a lot of gamers were upset with the pricing that they have for not only the Switch 2, but also their games that are going to be coming out for it. Now, to be fair though, I would say most people aren't necessarily as critical of the cost of the Switch 2 itself, especially when you consider the hardware updates that you're getting for the Switch 2 compared to even the Switch OLED. It seems, at least to me, and I believe from what I've seen, most people, that it justifies the price increase on that. However, the real sticking point is probably the cost of the games itself, and that's where most people are upset with Nintendo about. Nintendo responds to Mario Kart World bumper £75, $80 cost, says it's an example of variable pricing and hasn't set a benchmark. Now, this is Nintendo responding to the criticism, saying that the benchmark for their games moving forward isn't set. They're basically just having variable pricing for whatever releases. And we even saw a little bit of that there in their initial announcement when they're saying it's $80 for, or they didn't say this in their initial announcement. This was learned afterwards, but $80 for Mario Kart World, $70 for the new Donkey Kong game. But the problem with them saying that it's not going to necessarily set a benchmark, they mean it's not going to set a benchmark for them. However, other studios might not necessarily see things the same way. If you recall, a couple months ago, some studios were hoping that Rockstar would charge $100 for GTA 6 because, well, they could probably get away with charging $100 for that game. But other studios that might not be able to get away with doing that still feel like they would be justified in charging $100 for AAA games and basically make that the default price. And that's something that most gamers aren't interested in. So when you have a company that's the first one to do it, even if they are justified in doing so because people want to play those games, it's going to set a tone within the industry where that's going to be kind of the price for the big AAA releases. And not all of them can justify that price. And most gamers will probably choose to pass it up if that's going to be the way they try to do things. Nintendo has sought to justify its bumper £75, $80 price tag for Mario Kart World and pointed to the lower cost of fellow Switch 2 big hitter Donkey Kong Bonanza as evidence it had not established a new, more expensive benchmark. And that's, like I mentioned, Donkey Kong was a different price. So they're saying they're willing to charge different prices depending on what the game is. I'm just wondering how far it actually goes because they say $70 for Donkey Kong, $80 for Mario Kart. Is that going to be the two price points, or are they going to have games that are $60, maybe even $50? I would say even lower cost games they should sell for $40. Personally, I actually do like the idea of having variable pricing on games because I don't think all games are made equal. Some games like Mario Kart World, you can spend hundreds of hours playing that game and not get tired of it. Other games, even big expensive AAA releases, you can burn through the whole game in maybe like half a day tops, and then be done with that. And I don't think you should be able to have to pay the same amount for that game as opposed to something, even if it's a cheaper one to produce, that you get more value out of. And I think that's where the cost of the games should lie and what the value of the game actually is. Maybe the market kind of works itself out to a certain extent where the game initially launches at like the benchmark price, and then as time goes on, it goes on sale, but the ones that are more popular stay at their price. Maybe that's where things are go. But if they kind of use this as a benchmark throughout the industry where $80 or maybe $100 is going to be the default price for AAA releases, then what we're going to see in the future is softer launches for a lot of these games. And then as the price lowers over time, that's when people are going to start picking up the new releases. Speaking to the Washington Post, Nintendo of America boss Doug Bowser said Mario Kart World's higher price tag was simply an example of variable pricing that reflected the breadth and depth of the gameplay. I think you can anticipate that there will be variable pricing, and we haven't set a benchmark, Bowser said. Historically, Nintendo has set some game prices higher than others. Most recently, Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, which was priced at $70, an extra $10 on top of Zelda Breath of the Wild. Other Switch 2 games from Nintendo include Donkey Kong Bonanza, £65, $70, and the budget Switch 2 Welcome Tour, which is expected to cost around £5. Is worth noting too that Mario Kart World can be bought at a significant discount in a bundle with the Switch 2, though it's unclear how long this offer will last or whether stock will be sufficient to meet launch demand. And that's one thing about Mario Kart World I think of is that they're probably just trying to get people to buy this in the bundle. And I think most people who buy Mario Kart World are probably going to buy those bundles. They say that they don't know about the supply of it. I think those are going to sell out because with the bundle, you're getting it for $50, which that's a good price for any AAA release. But I don't like they're trying to point out some of these other things like the Switch 2 Welcome Tour for £5. I believe it's like $10 for that. I think that's something that probably should have been bundled with it, similar to how Wii Sports was bundled with the Wii. If it's essentially just kind of operating as not necessarily like a regular game, but just kind of like showcasing the technology and other stuff like that, then it probably should just come with it. I don't see why they're bothering to sell it as at an additional price, even if it is kind of a modest price. Still selling it at that is kind of weird. But if this is what they're going to do, if they're willing to have games that are like $10 or something like that are very simple ones, I'd be totally okay with that. I'm fine if they want to have games depending on how difficult they are for them to produce and how much value that they think they're going to get. If they range in price from like $10 to $80 or even $100, because as I already said, I think some games can actually justify that. But I do understand why a lot of people are upset about this, because it can set a bad precedent within the gaming industry as a whole, where other game developers aren't necessarily going to look at the nuance of what Nintendo's doing. They're just basically going to be like, oh, look, they're charging $80 for a new game. That means we can charge $80 for a new game too. And we've already seen, like I pointed out with that other article from a couple months ago, they're going to do that particularly. It's just a matter of who's the next company that actually make that leap where they're like, okay, now we're going to charge more for our games. Maybe Rockstar is going to be the next big one, and maybe they're going to charge $100, or maybe they're going to play it safe and charge $80 for GTA and just basically say like, oh yeah, Nintendo's the one who set this standard, so we're just following Nintendo's lead, so they can avoid any criticism for them and just shift all the blame to Nintendo if people are upset about the price increase. Bowser's comments published today were apparently recorded before Nintendo made the dramatic decision to delay US Switch 2 pre-orders due to the impact of tariffs. Switch 2 will still launch on 5th of June worldwide, including in the US, though fans there fear Nintendo may decide to increase the console price in response to the current global economic situation. Earlier today, Nintendo Korea Leak revealed the return of iconic locations in Mario Kart World, which Nintendo has so far tried to keep under wraps. And that's pretty much all I have about this. Let me know what you think about it in the comment section below, though. Do you think it's actually justified to have variable pricing and have an $80 cost for some games like Mario Kart World? Or do you think that is asking too much with what you got? And also, do you think that some games are actually worth that price, and maybe just you disagree with Mario Kart World being worth that price? Or do you think there should be a flat rate across the board, whether it's a huge AAA game or just like something a little bit more modest, they should all be the same price upon release? Or do you just think the cap of how much they're willing to charge for games on release should be lower than what they're saying right here with $80? Comment below, and also if you haven't already, make sure you click the subscribe button if you want to stay up to date with the latest entertainment news. And don't forget to click that like button and share this video out there, because it really helps out with the channel. Thank you.